Hello and welcome to another episode of Snakes Territory. I'm Jesse Friedman alongside Jack Sommers. And Jack, Friday night was a tough one for Diamondbacks fans. The game started pretty well for them. Ketel Marte, a first inning home run. Jake McCarthy added a solo homer in the third inning. D-backs had an early 2-0 lead. But then the fourth inning happened, and it was mostly downhill from there. Ultimately, a 7-4 loss. And Jack, the Arizona Diamondbacks are officially eliminated from the postseason contention.
As much as we probably expected it to happen this way, it's really tough. I mean, the morning after is still, it's not washed away. The thought that there's just two games remaining and they don't mean anything and the season's over and we won't get to watch and cover October baseball hurts. It's not fun.
As I said, Jack, the game started off pretty well for the D-backs. They had that early 2-0 lead, and then in the fourth inning, Fernando Tatis Jr. hit a grand slam. It was preceded by three straight singles, three one-out singles against Zac Gallen, Xander Bogaerts, Gavin Sheets, and Ryan O'Hearn. Not a single one of those singles was 90 miles an hour off the bat. They were all less than 90, some of them well below 90. So maybe some fortunate luck there for the Padres as all three of those found the outfield grass. But then Fernando Tatis Jr. really dealt the decisive blow in this game. Also worth mentioning that grand slam was preceded by a walk to Freddie Fermin. Zac Gallen had a shot to get out of that inning, and instead the lineup turned over. And that was not a you could sort of see something like that coming when you walk the number 9 man.
Yeah, I mean, it was the walk to Freddie Fermin that was the killer. Tatis put a 9-pitch at bat on him, and earlier in the at bat, I think there were a couple of pitches right in the middle of the plate that he fouled off. But when you give a guy that many chances, eventually he's going to get you. Tatis came in, I think, batting 349 with the bases loaded or something like that. And he's just too good a hitter at this stage of his career, even though he's not as good as he was when his first couple of years pre-injury and pre-suspension. He's still a pretty darn good hitter, and you have to throw that many pitches to a hitter of that caliber with the bases loaded. Something bad is going to happen. I mean, the worst happened, unfortunately, but him getting a hit or drawing a walk or something along those lines seemed inevitable once that at bat got past the fourth or fifth pitch.
There were also a lot of mistakes in this game from the Diamondbacks' perspective. Top of the second inning, Blaze Alexander draws a leadoff walk. He was later cut down as part of a strike him out, throw him out. That was not great. And then in the top of the third inning, Geraldo Perdomo followed up that Jake McCarthy home run with a double, but he was thrown out at third, trying to stretch that double into a triple. And then there was another base running mistake that came in the top of the fifth inning. Jack Ildemaro Vargas led off that inning with a double, but he came off the base just slightly as he was sliding in, and they applied the tag, and Vargas was ruled out as a result of that. So unfortunately for this team that has carried a really positive reputation on the bases for the most part the last several years, that hasn't really been the case in 2025. And in some ways, Jack, it was fitting that the Diamondbacks season ending happened in that way.
Yeah, Blaze Alexander has 4 stolen bases and 6 caught. And at least 3 of those caught stealings have happened in the last week, 10 days, it seems like. I didn't look up exactly, but I mean, they've been pretty compressed. He just keeps getting thrown out. I think he's been thrown out 3 or 4 out of his last 5. So he's very fast. He's a fast base runner. He's almost as fast as he's like the 4th or 5th fastest guy in the team. But he's just not getting good jumps and reads. The Perdomo play, the ball got past the left fielder and caromed off the wall, and the center fielder came over and made a really good play to get over and get to the ball quickly and get it back in. But from our vantage point in the press box, we're pretty high up, and you just got a really good view. I mean, Merrill's just about picking up the ball just as Perdomo was rounding second base, and I guess he made the decision to go about 15 feet before second base. He kind of reaccelerated, And immediately I just turned around and said to Alex Weiner, I said, he's out. There was just no, I mean, he was definitely dead to rights. And he was 15 out by 15 feet. I mean, it was going to be an easy play. And then the Vargas, he popped up, he did a pop up slide. You can't do pop up slides anymore
Yeah.
because if you come off the base, I mean, I don't know how a veteran player makes that mistake. Honestly, I really don't. I mean, he was happy, he was excited. It was an opportunity to get back in the game. And it was kind of funny. Later in the game, there were a couple of plays, pickoff plays and plays at first base, and because Xander Bogaerts held the glove on Vargas long enough to get the out, for the rest of the game, every time Vargas had any kind of tag play, he held the glove on like inordinately long. It was like he was like hoping to make up for it or something. I don't know, but it happened 2 or 3 times, and it was really kind of funny to watch. Also, Geraldo Perdomo made a pretty bad error at shortstop that led to a run. I mean, it was a pretty straightforward feed from Cattell to Perdomo. There wasn't a bad feed or anything like that. He just dropped it, not getting that out ultimately led to Phillip Abner walking in a run. So mistakes, all before the fifth inning really sealed their fate. The base running mistakes, the error, and then Zac walking the number 9 hitter against Tatis. One last thing I want to say is they were super relaxed in the clubhouse before the game. And I actually had a sense that they were too relaxed and not totally locked in. Now, it was early, right? It wasn't their turn yet to go out on the field and take infield, right? So that's usually the way that is, right? Before they're allowed to go out on the field, they're just kind of chilling in the clubhouse, waiting for their turn to go outside and get warmed up. But there was just, to me, it was a funny vibe. I mean, they have this Golden Tees golf machine, and some of the players were playing that. And I'm sitting there. I actually was thinking, like, I bet they don't have this machine in the Padres clubhouse, like to distract the players. And there were some other things. Just the total vibe almost seemed over relaxed to me. That's just my feedback.
That golf arcade game has been a fixture of the visiting clubhouse at Petco Park for quite some time. At least the last like 2 or 3 years that I've been out there covering games. There's always people playing that, which is it at least gives us reporters something to do that's entertaining while we're waiting around for whoever to pop in the clubhouse. But interesting points there with regard to just kind of the mindset of the team, what you were observing before this game. The D-backs did have a shot late, Jack. The 8th inning, Ketel Marte led off with a walk against Kyle Hart. Corbin Carroll followed that up with another walk. And then there were several other walks in this inning. There were 5 walks when all was said and done. And because there were 5 walks, the Diamondbacks automatically were gifted 2 runs, but they weren't able to do anything beyond that. Mason Miller entered the game to face Jorge Barosa. At that point, it was a 6-4 game. D-backs were just a base hit away, theoretically, from tying that one up. Jorge Barosa put a decent at bat on Mason Miller, Jack. He saw some pitches. It was a 7-pitch at bat when all was said and done. Worked the count to 3-2, but he ultimately wound up striking out on a 102-mile-per-hour fastball above the zone. And I know Barosa has had a bit of a rough go of things here the past few weeks. Against Mason Miller, it's hard to be too critical of him in that moment. That's one of the best pitchers in all of baseball.
Yeah, I mean, he got ahead in the count 2-0, and then Miller got back in the count. He fouled off a pitch that was ball 4, and then he swung at the pitch above the zone. That was ball 4. Like you said, it's hard to be too critical. This is Mason Miller. I mean, the guy is just unbelievable. He's got a 100 batting average against and a strikeout per 9 of 16. So, the natural inclination is to really dump on Barosa, but that was a tough spot. At the same time, our good friend Jeff Irving pointed out on Twitter last night that Barosa has never taken a walk in his career, which is true.
Yeah.
He's got 87 plate appearances without a walk. And it's really strange because he's got 320 walks in his minor league career and over 2,800 at-bats, plate appearances. I mean, his career minor league walk percentage is like over 10%. It's like 11 something. The guy can take a walk. I don't know why it's not happening in the major leagues. I think he's just pressing. I think he's trying to do too much. I know a lot of people are really down on Jorge Barrosa, and this is definitely going to be a swimming upstream comment. I think he's a much better player than he's shown. I'm not saying he's a starter. I still think he is a fourth outfielder, but he's a tremendous defender, and I know he can hit and get on base better than he's done so far in his 87 major league plate appearances. Whether or not he'll get that opportunity remains to be seen, and how much better he'll be remains to be seen. But he's better than this.
Well, of course, one of the big narratives of this game was Zac Gallen making his final start as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks, at least for right now, as he enters free agency. We'll talk about his outing, how it wasn't great, and his reaction after the fact, right after this break here on Snakes Territory.
FT fam, Superpower believes that every human has 100-year potential, and they're going to help you get there. I like the sweatshirt, Eric Kratz, and I also love the way that Superpower takes care of its members.
Yeah. You go get your lab test, you become the best you. You be a member of this group, and your test will come back. It's unlocking things that you didn't know about yourself. This is stuff that players used all the time. You can do it now too.
Exactly, Kratz. How many of you have gone to a doctor's appointment? You get the classic, oh, you're fine, or just drink more water. No real data, no real game plan. With one simple blood draw with Superpower and over 100 biomarkers, that is way more than what you'd usually get, and it unlocks so much more about your own body. Head to superpower.com to learn more and lock in the special $199 price while it lasts. After you sign up, they'll ask you how you heard about them. Please make sure to mention the FT podcast to support the show. Your biology decoded, your blueprint activated with Superpower.
Well, Jack, it wasn't exactly how you draw it up. Zac Gallen's last start as a member of the Diamondbacks, 4 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 6 runs, 5 of those earned, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. I know going into this outing, we were both pretty bullish on Gallen, the way that he's pitched lately, the way that he has stepped up for this team and turned his season around here over the past couple of months. But unfortunately, when the Diamondbacks really needed him on Friday, it was one of his worst outings in quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, the Padres made him work through the first 3 innings. I mean, there was a base runner in each inning, but he looked fine. I mean, he didn't look like he was really struggling. His stuff looked okay. It wasn't outstanding. I mean, his velocity was in the early innings was about where it normally is. He was working the curveball like he usually does. I mean, he was getting out of minor jams with, one runner on base in each inning. So it looked fine. And as you pointed out, those 3 base hits, none of them were over 90 miles an hour. I mean, it very easily could have gone, another way. But I think, look, the whole controversy about him, being pushed back, we talked about that with him post game. If you want to find that audio, you can the video. You can go over to D-backs on SI. On Twitter, and you'll find the video of Zac talking about it. And I specifically asked him, how did you feel about that, and how was that communicated, and all of that. And he said, look, he was shocked. I mean, he was preparing to start on Thursday. This was not something that he expected, but he quickly resigned himself to it and accepted it. And said, all right, well, whatever, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do and go along with it. And I think at that point, he said, look, hindsight's 2020 and all of that. I do feel obligated to mention again, we talked about it during the last show. This was a front office decision. Everyone's killing Torey on Twitter about it. And I mentioned it last time. If you listened to the show, if you didn't tune in last time, that was a front office decision, as are many decisions that Torey gets lambasted for when it comes to days off, even lineups. I mean, Torrey talked about this pregame yesterday. There are analytics staff and intern staff that are actually, having a heavily influence on the lineup. And Torrey's comment was, "I have a voice in the room." And he emphasizes, look, they hand me everything, and then it's my job to run a game. So I just, I think that it's really important for everyone to just kind of like step back and take a deep breath and say, all right, look, this organization is run from the top down, and a lot of decisions that people think are the managers, it's not like that in baseball anymore. I mean, most teams, there's exceptions, but most teams run it like this, and that was certainly the case in the decision to push Zac Gallen back.
Torrey made the point also in that pregame presser that the role has evolved quite a bit over the years, that managers do not have as much control now as they did, 10, 20 years ago. So I think that's important perspective for people to keep in mind. But going back to Zac Gallen, Jack, I know that the fact that the D-backs pushed him back was not only a big change because he was facing a different team. It was also a big change because he did not have an opportunity to start one more time at Chase Field as a member of the Diamondbacks. And I know you got to talk to him about this after the game, and it sounds like that kind of would have meant something to him.
It absolutely would have. Look, when we got to his locker, he was sitting there with his uniform on. We asked him about that, and he said he didn't want to take it off. I mean, this guy, he was a Diamondback through and through. And he said, "Look, I've been in other organizations, but I think of myself as a Diamondback. I've been here for 7 years." When the interviews were all over, this is a private moment, but I think I can share it. I said, "Hey, that was a pretty classy move to put your uniform back on." And he said, "I never took it off. I just didn't want to take it off." It was tough. I mean, look, again, it's okay to feel empathy for people, even if they make a lot of money. I posted a couple videos. Corbin Carroll also having a tough time with his emotions. Zach was having a tough time with his emotions about not getting to do the whole, he said it wasn't, and the sentimentality of it wasn't the number one thing, but certainly something he would have liked to do, to either, have that final walk off the mound, or, if he had a good outing and comes off the mound to cheers at the end of an inning, certainly that would have been something that he would have enjoyed. But at the end of the day, he's a professional and he's trying to win games, and whatever the team felt that he needed to do, he would do. But, it's okay to feel empathy, folks, even for people that are rich and wealthy. I mean, human emotion is human emotion, and people feel it. No, it's not the end of the world. It's not war. It's not life and death. But, when you work with people every single day, and that they're human beings and they feel emotion, and it's okay to feel empathy for another human being, and you don't have to put aside any empathy for that human being just because they're an athletic entertainer that makes a lot more money than you do. It's okay.
Well said. Zac Gallen, Jack, finishes the season 13-15 with a 4.83 ERA. It was certainly not the walk year that anyone anticipated he would have. And it's strange looking a little closer at some of the numbers, because you look at, some of the more basic stats, like his opponent batting average was 239. Last year was 237. The year before that, it was 238. It was basically the exact same as it's been the last couple of years. His whip was 1.26. It was also 1.26 last year. But, of course, he gave up a whole lot of home runs this year. There was 31 of those in total. He'd never given up more than 22 in any season in his big league career in the past. So that was a big challenge for him. But he still gave the team 192 innings. He was able to go out there and at least provide some length more often than not. So it's going to be a really interesting free agency for him coming up. But I hope for D-backs fans, they can keep some perspective about Zac Gallen and the fact that he really has been a a real weapon for this team for quite some time. I mean, going all the way back to 2019 when they first acquired him. I know there have been some ups and downs the past few years, but on the whole, this is a guy who has a 3.58 career ERA with basically all of those innings coming as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. I mean, that's a pretty impressive run for any pitcher 7 years into their career.
Yeah, I mean, he's third in career wins as a Diamondback. He's fourth in career Baseball Reference WAR as a Diamondback. And he had some really excellent seasons here. And yes, the last season and a half wasn't great for him. It didn't, end well. But like you said, I hope people can keep perspective. He gave this organization a lot. I know that he always gave his best. He was always prepared. You could always see him just pouring through whatever data, matchups, preparation that he was doing before his start. He went about his work as professionally as anybody you could ask for. So it is what it is. This is baseball. He was 99% going to be moving on to another organization next year. It'd be a major surprise and upset if he comes back. He's not going to accept the qualifying offer, and he is going to get more than $50 million elsewhere, and the Diamondbacks are going to get a draft pick.
There we go. We finally settled the qualifying offer discussion. I think we're all on the same page. Zac Gallen is very likely going to reject the qualifying offer. The D-backs should get draft pick compensation in exchange for that. Of course, we have a whole offseason ahead of us to talk through all of these different storylines. I do want to revisit the game on Thursday, Jack, because I guess this is really the game on Wednesday. The last game that the Diamondbacks really had a true chance to win. We're right there. And maybe if they find a way to win that Wednesday game against the Dodgers, the whole rest of the season looks different for them. We're going to revisit a pretty important moment in that game when we come back right here on Snakes Territory after this break.
Todd Father, you and me grew up in Jersey. We liked to collect cards, but the way the process got was ridiculous. You open up a pack, there's a bunch of cards you don't care about. Then you want to get certain ones graded. Takes forever, right? Then you want to maybe sell one. It's such a to-do. Arena Club has been the solution for us.
Arena Club has been a solution for everybody. You go online, go to Arena Club, and you check out what they have. Put a little cash down, and you might get one of the best cards that you've ever seen in your life, an autographed card. And guess what? If you don't like the card, easily you could sell it back and make a little cash. You never know what to expect. It's a cool way of doing it. You're going to get a surprise every time. And if you're into cards, this is something you really need to get into.
Right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL like Todd Father's talking about with those slab packs. Every pack is a grail. That's at least 20x the price of the pack. Check it out.
So the bottom of the 10th inning, Jack, somehow we're talking about it again. The bottom of the 10th inning on Wednesday, the inning where Geraldo Perdomo laid down a sacrifice bunt to get things started. It advanced the automatic runner, Ketel Marte, to third base with one out. Of course, Corbin Carroll gets intentionally walked. Gabriel Moreno gets intentionally walked. And then it set up a tough left-on-left matchup for Jake McCarthy. McCarthy wound up popping up in that situation, did not hit the ball nearly as far as the D-backs needed him to get that run across. And we have some new information about that, courtesy originally of our friends over at Burns and Gambo. I know Tori Lavello revealed some interesting information there, Jack.
Yeah, straight up, he said that Jake McCarthy missed a sign. And that he was supposed to lay down a bunt. When Torrey first said it, the first time he mentioned it on Burns and Gambo, he said the phrase suicide squeeze, but he later corrected himself in that interview, and it was a safety squeeze. And then when we talked to him about it yesterday, he said, yeah, it was kind of like an aggressive form of safety squeeze, but obviously Ketel wasn't charging. He would have been dead to rights at home plate if that were the case. But he also seemed to intimate that maybe there was a little bit of lack of clarity in the giving of the sign too. He kind of alluded to that, but again, it wasn't crystal clear. But he was, bottom line is he feels like Jake missed a sign. That's the play he wanted. Now, why didn't that get communicated verbally in the dugout long before he went out to the on-deck circle. I don't know. Torrey claimed that he anticipated both intentional walks or the intentional walk in the pitch around, and he planned all along to have Jake bunt if the bases were loaded. So if that was the case, I hate to throw doubt on what he's saying, but couldn't you tell him in the dugout? So that I have that question, but I didn't get to follow up and ask that one. I did ask him about what were the conversations with Jake about, and he said, I don't want to say. He refused to kind of talk about. I guess after, I think he thought I was talking about after the fact, but I didn't ask my question properly, and I meant to say, did you talk to him about it before the at bat? But I didn't get it out properly, and then he shut down the conversation, thinking that I was asking about a private post conversation about the miss. But Torrey was clearly upset about it. Feels like the player missed the sign, and of course, Torrey's getting lambasted up and down. But that's that he owns it. He owns that.
That Wednesday game, Jack, is one of a number of games in the month of September where the D-backs were right there and they just couldn't quite get over the hump. And I think that's why, as we talk about this team being eliminated, I think it's a tough pill for people to swallow, even though we didn't anticipate the D-backs would be in this position at all. We've said it multiple times on the show. If you told either of us a couple months ago that the D-backs would survive until the last weekend of the season, I would have thought that you were crazy. But at the same time, it still feels like an opportunity was missed here because of that Wednesday game where they were just, a fly ball to the outfield. Or I guess if that play with McCarthy was successful, maybe there's a way for them to end it via the bunt. But you look at some of these other games that they lost in September. I mean, Wednesday, the 17th against the Giants, a game where Brandon Pfaadt delivered 9 scoreless innings, and the Diamondbacks were not able to get over the hump and win that game. You think about the Friday, September 12th game against the Twins. Gabriel Moreno hits that big 3-run home run. The Diamondbacks take an 8-7 lead, only to lose that lead in the bottom half of the 9th inning. They lose that game 9-8 on a walk-off. And then I think back to the very first game of the month, September 1st against the Texas Rangers, a game the D-backs were a strike away from winning, and then they wind up losing that one in extras 7-5. Every team, Jack, is going to blow games. Every team is going to have games like this. So I don't want to make it sound like all of those games are games the D-backs should have won. You're not going to expect to win all of the games that you are somewhat in position to win, but man, it really feels, looking back, like the D-backs left some opportunities out there, and it's hard not to think about those here on September 27th as we think about this team officially being eliminated.
Well, that happened all year long. So
Yeah.
maybe Torrey was channeling maybe a little bit of my prior emotions about that game in Cincinnati, the rain game, which I've ranted about several times. And Torrey told a funny story. He said, look, I was in my office and there were some front office members there, and I was ranting about that game and not having the tiebreaker with Cincinnati. And he said the front office personnel postured him and said, hey, it's about a lot more than just that one game. And then Torrey went on to recap, and he said, if you go back to the beginning of the season, they were struggling on defense. Of course, there were plenty of bullpen mishaps, far more than you would expect, even, before the entire bullpen was gone. And he said, if you go to the week before the trade deadline, the offense disappeared. I mean, there were lots of different times when this team kind of really struggled to put it all together in different facets of the game. And I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, they blew now 46 leads. Yesterday's game was the 46th time they've had a lead in the game and ended up losing it, which is the second most in baseball, behind only the White Sox. But when you zoom out and look at it on a little bit more macro view, 75-80% of that is because of the bullpen.
Yeah.
It just is. I mean, I'm sorry. 75-80% of the reason this team is not in the postseason is because of the bullpen. And we can point to this game, we can point to that game, we can debate back and forth, but hey, it's a 162 game season for a reason, and we have a 162 game sample to look at. And we can say, hey, this was the biggest issue with 100% confidence. So, and when you say it's the bullpen, some people may feel very strongly that Torrey mismanaged the bullpen. But I'm going to go back to it. It sounds like being a Tory apologist, but I'm telling you guys that who's available, who's not, what the roles are, all of that does not come from Tory. It just doesn't. I mean, I'm not trying to defend a guy. I'm just giving you the facts. And it's an organizational thing, and it starts from the top down of not having enough depth. I mean, all teams are going to have injuries. I know the D-backs injuries were tougher than most in that one specific area, but the fact is they didn't have enough depth to cover it.
Yeah. There are still moments, right? Like also that Wednesday game where we talked about Torey Lovullo leaving in Philip Abner to face Teoscar Hernandez instead of going to Juan Murillo. Is that a front office decision or a Torey decision? I guess maybe that decision also came from the front office. I mean, I know Torey was talking about the analytical data about Teoscar Hernandez against cutters inside and how that's why they liked the Abner matchup in that situation. But yeah, zooming out to the entire season, Jack, I mean, managing this bullpen, no matter who's in charge of it, was going to be a losing battle from the beginning. The ultimate issue here, as you just said, is that there just wasn't enough depth. There just have not been enough guys for this team to use in those late game situations. And obviously, I guess trading Shelby Miller at the deadline didn't wind up meaning a whole lot because Shelby unfortunately got hurt shortly thereafter. Didn't wind up making too many appearances for the Brewers, but that is another thing I think we should mention here is that this version of the Diamondbacks that made this thing pretty close at the end of the season didn't have Eugenio Suarez, didn't have Josh Naylor or Randall Grichuk, and I know some of these guys have gone on.
Kelly.
Or Merrill, yes, that's probably the biggest name there, Merrill Kelly. And so the fact that they were able to do this anyway after decisively selling at the trade deadline is pretty crazy. It's a testament to how much fight this team has and has shown over the years, even if they also make you want to pull your hair out at the end of the day because of the way that they lose some of these games as they have here in the month of September.
Yeah. With Shelby, I mean, he was injured when he was traded.
Yeah.
And he had a forearm issue when he was traded. So I think he just tried to come back and pitch and, compete. And he wasn't fully healthy when he tried to do so and got re-injured. I mean, I think he was already damaged goods when D-backs traded him to Milwaukee. And I think that the ultimate result of needing Tommy John surgery again is of where he was at before the trade.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very fair. He was a bit of a wild card, and there's a reason the Diamondbacks basically just got cash in return for him in that deal. That I don't think the Brewers really knew what they were going to get, and obviously that things didn't play out great in that regard. The Diamondbacks still have 2 more games to go this season, Jack. They have no significance from a postseason standpoint. We're not going to show the standings. We're not going to show the if go, must go graphic that Jack has become so well known for around the Diamondbacks community. But I guess there's still something to play for here, Jack, in that the D-backs could still finish the season above 500. If they're able to come back and win these last 2 games, they could finish 82 and 80. Or I guess they could at least get to 500 if they're able to win one of these last 2 games. So maybe an opportunity to sort of salvage some dignity for themselves. And again, in the larger perspective, I mean, this team bouncing back from being 7 games below 500 at the trade deadline, if they're able to finish 500 or even a couple games over 500, that would be pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, whatever. It doesn't really mean anything, and I don't think it's a very much of a motivating factor for them. Uh, you know, the I'm not sure if the Padres, do they still have a chance at getting home field advantage if they sweep? I think they still are alive for that. If they sweep and the Cubs lose the next two, I think that the Padres could get home field advantage in the playoff series. So,
Yeah.
they probably have more motivation than the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they're 2 games behind the Cubs at this point. So, and you said earlier they have the tiebreaker there via interdivision record. So yeah, the Padres still do have a chance to get home field advantage in the wild card round, which is certainly would be significant for them. But yeah, well, Jack, we have a whole off season ahead of us to talk about where the Diamondbacks go from here. Certainly a lot of moves to be made. I think both you and I feel that this is going to be a pretty busy offseason for this team. Maybe quite a few trades coming. The D-backs don't have a ton of money to spend, so it feels like that's the route they're going to have to go, at least for a significant portion of what they accomplish. And I guess to kind of land the plane here, Jack, the last thought that comes to mind for me is I think the way they finished out this season, even though it didn't end the way people wanted it to, I think it still probably has at least some impact in how they approach this offseason. Because if that team that was 51-58 at the trade deadline had continued sort of down that road and finished the year 10, 12, 14 games below 500, it becomes a lot harder to talk yourself into making the playoffs in 2026, knowing that AJ Puck is still out and Justin Martinez is still out and Corbin Burns is still out. But given the fact that this team, even after selling at the trade deadline, is only going to finish, 2-3 games out of this thing when all is said and done, I think it probably gives them at least a little bit more urgency this offseason to try to push the chips in. Maybe that was their plan already. I don't know exactly how much their thinking has changed, but at least my thinking, Jack, going into the offseason is the D-backs are probably going to try to win next year. I mean, they're going to try to make moves to make this team better, and the way they've performed the last couple of months can only further their motivation to do that.
Well, my Kazan team is always going to try to win. We know that. I mean, doing tear downs, I mean, obviously, that may seem a little odd to say considering what happened at the trade deadline. But, going into a season, certainly they're not ever in a total rebuild situation. What you saw happen at the trade deadline is about the closest thing that you'll ever see. But again, those were all expiring contracts. So, that's not equivalent to a teardown. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But look, we're going to have a little bit more clarity on their direction Monday. Monday is the first day after the end of the season, and traditionally that's when we get to sit down with Mike and Tori, and they download on the season, and we ask them, what are your priorities heading into the off season, and he usually will give us some indication of what he's looking to do and what his priorities are. So we'll have plenty of time to circle back once we hear from them. And, we're going to have a long off season, right? We're going to have October, November, December, January, February, March to get through all this and figure out how this team gets geared back up for the 2026 season to try to compete. And that process begins on Monday. And as soon as we're done talking to Mike, we will come back and relay everything we heard and how we interpret it, and then start diving into all the great questions people have been asking about the offseason. We haven't been willing to dive into those yet, but it's coming, obviously, starting on early next week.
So for those of you who are wondering if we're not going to be doing shows during the off season, we will. We absolutely will still be here throughout the off season. We'll drop from 3 shows per week down to 2 episodes per week, so we won't be here quite as often, but we'll still be here multiple times every week throughout the off season, talking about the various moves the Diamondbacks make, the various moves that maybe we anticipate they will make, or maybe they should make. So we will definitely be here. And as Jack said, we expect that press conference to probably happen on Monday, and you can expect another episode from us at that point. So, Jack, any final thoughts here as we wrap up this show and think about the Diamondbacks no longer being in this 2025 playoff race?
Well, I want to thank all our listeners. You guys are great. I just love all the feedback we get, and very appreciative. And I feel your pain.
There you go. Well, thank you to all of you for being with us on this episode of Snakes Territory. We really appreciate your time. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel here on YouTube. As I said, we're not going anywhere. We'll still be here throughout the off season. Drop a comment here as well. We would love to hear from you, what you thought of the show, what you thought of the Diamondbacks here in this final week of the season as they're not able to get the job done. If you're joining us over on an audio-only platform, it'd be a huge help. If you've been listening for a while, you've been enjoying the show, if you could leave us a 5-star review, that would really go a long way for us. We really appreciate that. You can find us on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman over on Twitter. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. And our show is at Snakes Territory. And of course, Jack continues to do great work covering the Diamondbacks over at si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. So be sure to check out that site as well. And Jack, you're still here in San Diego here for the next couple of days. So still some more baseball games to be covered to finish this thing off.
Absolutely.
There we go. Well, thank you again to all of you for being with us. We really appreciate your time. And we'll be back with another episode of Snakes Territory very, very soon.